Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's online worship service. I'm Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom, and I'm honored to serve as the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's senior minister. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you're bringing with you today and all your heart longs to set down. I'd like to welcome you in to the worship service this morning by inviting you to repeat our first church mission after me. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Our opening words this morning are from Howard Thurman's book, For the Inward Journey. The Reverend Dr. Thurman writes, "Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Despite the dullness and barrenness of the days that pass, if I search with due diligence, I can always find a deposit left by some former radiance. At the time, it was full-orbed, glorious, resplendent, and I was sure I would never forget. In the moment of its fullness, I was sure it would illumine my path for the rest of my journey. I had forgotten how easy it is to forget. There was no intent to betray what seemed so sure at the time. My response was whole, clean, authentic. But little by little, there crept into my life the dust and grit of the journey, details, lower level demands, all kinds of cross currents, nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant, just wear and tear. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or foul, in good times or tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve." Let's go now to our beloved sanctuary to light the chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Today is the opening Sunday of our annual pledge drive, which will end with a celebration on Sunday, March 21st. As we do every year, we begin with a covenant between the congregation and our pledge team and our pledge event hosts. We affirm their call to lead us as a community of generosity and abundance as they join with the Feast for Funds and Heritage Society teams in the shared work to steward our congregation's financial resources. Every stewardship team at First Church is led by members who work so hard to gather the resources our community needs to make church happen. Today, we ask all of you at home to join in covenant with our pledge team and our pledge event hosts as they work on our behalf to make church possible. The pledge team and pledge event hosts will lead the work of generosity during our pledge drive, and you might be invited to a Zoom pledge community event, which will be fun, so please say yes when you get that invitation. Our church depends on pledges, commitments from each member, stating how much you intend to give over the course of the year. We use that to create an annual budget that pays for the programs, staff, and material resources that go into making church. Our pledge team chair is Mark Chambers, our tireless and inspiring leader, and he and others on the team are going to lead our responsive reading that brings us into covenant today. Our worship associate, Miles Schuler, is going to lead the congregation's part. So for everyone who's at home, we invite you to join Miles in saying, "For this we are grateful." And you will know that it's your turn to speak and say, "For this we are grateful," every time Miles comes onto the screen. But before I hand over the covenant to Mark, I'm going to ask each member of the team and the hosts to introduce themselves to you.
Hello, my name is Deb Mansky, and I am part of the pledge team.
Hello, I'm Sharon Depew, and I'm a pledge event host.
Hi, I'm Rod Depew, and I'm also an event pledge host.
Hi, I'm Matt Burns. I'm on the pledge team.
I'm Nancy Spranzi, and I am an event host.
Hi, I'm Ann Alexander, and I'm on the pledge team.
Hello, I'm Beth Monholland, and I'm happy to serve as a Zoom event host this year.
Bob Balderson, pledge team member.
Hello, my name is Diana Dentino, and I am serving as a Zoom pledge event host this year.
Hi, I'm Jackie Zandy. I'm part of the pledge team.
Hi, I'm Mark Miller, and I'm a pledge event host.
Hi, my name is Miles Schuler, and I'm pleased to serve as worship associate today.
Hi, I'm Sally Lewis, and I am a pledge event host.
And I'm Kathy Rivera, also a pledge event host.
My name is Mark Chambers, and I have the privilege of serving as this year's chair of the pledge drive effort.
Thank you all so much, pledge event hosts and pledge team members, and our fearless and tireless leader, Mark Chambers, for serving the congregation in this way. Congregation, I'd like to invite you now to enter into covenant with our pledge team and our pledge event hosts by responding to each of their following statements with, "For this we are grateful," along with our worship associate, Miles Schuler.
This congregation exists to transform lives, to nurture spirits, to engage minds, and inspire action in our members and the community. Stewardship exists to fulfill that mission.
For this, we are grateful.
As members of a free and democratic church, we know the loving stewardship of our congregation belongs to all of us.
For this, we are grateful.
We trust this team to lead us in lives of stewardship on a journey of gratitude, commitment, and celebration of our community and its values.
For this, we are grateful.
We are humbled by your trust and take up this task on behalf of us all. We move forward together in service and commitment, giving of ourselves to build our beautiful future.
For this, we are grateful.
Now, congregation, if we were in person, I would say, let us give a round of applause for our pledge event hosts and for our pledge team. But since we're online, let's just bring the applause inward and show our gratitude by saying yes when you get that invitation from your pledge team or your pledge event hosts. And we are so grateful to all of you for showing up, for doing the work, for wrestling through technology. the community expresses their gratitude to you as well. Thank you. Dear ones, because of the unprecedented times in which we continue to live, and the ways that our lives are all being touched by the grief and the loss of this global coronavirus pandemic, we're continuing our practice of lighting the COVID candle for any of our members who have had a loved one die during this period, either from COVID-19 or from another cause. If you've had a loved one die from COVID-19 or another cause during this time, and you'd like the COVID candle lit for that person during Sunday's worship, contact one of the ministers. Theodore, more commonly known as Ted Scher, died on January 31st, 2021. Ted was 89 years old, and he was a member of the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee from 1971 to 2019. It is our pandemic practice to light our COVID candle to honor the lives and the deaths of members' loved ones during the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, we light our COVID candle in honor of Ted Scher. As we enter now into a time of meditation, which will be followed by silence, followed by the song Spirit of Life, just invite you to take a moment to get yourself comfortable, whatever that means to you. Maybe that means feeling your body, shaking out your shoulders a little bit, or maybe it means tuning in to the rhythm of your breath, moving in and out of your body, and letting that breath bring you into being here and now. Whatever it is, do it now and settle. Spirit of life and love, Holy One of our being and our becoming, that which is sacred within, among, and beyond us. Come be with us today as we remember the centers of our lives, our highest resolves, our deepest values, our truest priorities. May we remember and return to what gives our lives meaning again and again. Return to love, return to wonder, return to justice, return to connection. This world is full of dust and dirt and despair and distraction. We send our caring thoughts to all those who are struggling today, in mind or in body, and especially to those who are suddenly hungry or without heat or without shelter. May we have the fortitude, the perseverance, and the practice to return again to that which we value, to dust off our hands and our hearts and return again to love. May it be so, and amen.
Hello again. My name is Miles Schuler, and I'm serving as Worship Associate today. When I was an AmeriCorps member, I worked on a program in Milwaukee that created community spaces on vacant lots. The goal was to help residents take ownership of the space while providing something useful. In order to determine what the community truly needed out of the space, I met with many community leaders in neighborhoods throughout the city, the majority of which were poor communities of color. As a white middle-class man entering these spaces, I was well aware of my privilege and the potential ignorance I have about other situations. I felt the need to connect with the community, but didn't know what that would look like. I couldn't get past the fact that I was an outsider and we likely had different life experiences. A week into my position, I joined my coworker and supervisor at a meeting with community leaders from one of our neighborhoods. As the one new person in the group, I stayed on the sidelines. The conversation was mostly business. What lots are available in the area, what would be useful to the community, what ideas have there been from residents in the past. Though the tone was serious at first, the community leaders' excitement and enthusiasm shone through once ideas were discussed. We ended up with a good picture of what a potential project could be. At that point, the conversation shifted, and the community partners invited me in. They wanted to know more about me. The tension I didn't know I was holding released. I walked in thinking I was nervous about providing program information, even though I wasn't planning on saying much, but my real fear was of possible rejection as an outsider coming into this new space. I happily answered the community partners' questions, choosing to focus on my goals for the program and the year in general, since those were the things I was most excited to talk about. The community partners let us out at the end, saying, "Talk soon and looking forward to working with you." I left feeling optimistic about building a relationship with them and implementing a successful project in their neighborhood. This turned out to be the biggest lesson I learned from my service here. At the end of the day, when you're willing to listen to a community and follow their lead in reaching a common goal, it can become easier to connect across difference than you think. I find this lesson relevant whenever I interact with people outside my bubble. I recognize that my own anxieties about working with others stems from my worry about offending or overstepping while being an outsider in their space. Trusting them to understand their needs and trusting my own good intent creates a bridge where we can connect to make a difference.
When I wake up in America, I see my neighbors there with every type of clothes and shoes, hats and skin and hair, every fine belief and custom. Scores of songs from who knows where. When I wake up in America, our stories fill the air. Wake up, despierta. Wake up, despierta. Wake up in America. The light in the harbor shines for us all. When I wake up, I see the kids playing happily swaying. It's good to be staying in a place like this, with a face like this. When I wake up in America, I put away my fear, and I love my neighbor as myself. And I say, I'm glad that you're here. We have found ourselves together in a land we dream could be. When we wake up in America, despierta. Wake up, please, America. The light in the harbor shines for us all. When I wake up, when you wake up, when we wake up in America.
In 1943, theologian, professor, minister, and dean of the chapel at Howard University, the Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman, received a letter from a colleague in the Presbyterian Church. At the time, Thurman was already nationally recognized as a public speaker and Christian theologian. In the 1930s, he had been invited as one of a 4-member African-American delegation of the American Christian Student Movement, chosen to travel to India to meet Mahatma Gandhi and engage in cross-cultural religious dialogue. At Howard University, Dr. Thurman taught theology, ethics, and ministry to students while also maintaining a rigorous speaking schedule and writing books. So, as writer Paul Harvey tells us the story in Boone, California, when Dr. Thurman received that letter from Reverend Alfred Fisk of San Francisco State University asking if he knew of a part-time divinity student who might help start an interracial congregation in San Francisco, Dr. Thurman didn't initially consider the opportunity for himself. However, Thurman had grown restless with his role at Howard University, and he could feel something in his spirit calling him forwards towards a new adventure. During his time in India, a decade earlier, Thurman had had a mystical experience. In his book, Footprints of a Dream, Dr. Thurman tells the story of having a vision as he entered the Khyber Pass with his wife, Sue. Thurman watched the pass narrow into Afghanistan, twisting back and forth through the mountains with people and animals and goods traveling along this ancient roadway as they had for thousands of years, bringing ideas and materials and human beings back and forth between worlds. In Footprints of a Dream, Thurman wrote, "All that we had seen and felt in India seemed to be brought miraculously into focus. We saw clearly what we must do somehow when we returned to America. We knew we must test whether a religious fellowship could be developed in America that was capable of cutting across all racial barriers with a carryover into the common life, a fellowship that would alter the behavior patterns of those who were involved in it. It became imperative now," Dr. Thurman writes, "to find out if experiences of spiritual unity among people could be more compelling than the experiences that divided them." Back at Howard University 10 years later, as he considered Reverend Fisk's letter, Dr. Thurman began to wonder whether this was the opportunity towards which he felt his life had been moving. Dr. Thurman wrote Fisk back and said that actually he would like to begin such a church with Reverend Fisk. They exchanged ideas, and by 1944, Dr. Thurman and his wife were packed up and on their way to San Francisco to found the first intentionally interracial, interdenominational church in the United States. Dr. Thurman was a mystic who believed that the purpose of church is to bring people before the holy, to offer them time and place set apart to bring their whole selves into the presence of the sacred. Thurman believed that the work of church is to inspire, to reconnect the human being with that sacred spark within, and to recognize that sacred spark in other human beings, and to restore the commitment to sacred and right relationship among them. Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman and Reverend Alfred Fisk founded the Church for the Fellowship of All Peoples in 1944 to see if the practice of being in the presence of the holy, of experiencing the aliveness of the holy within, would give human beings the capacity to see the holy in one another, so much so that they would be able to overcome the stories and the fears and the prejudices they had against one another in racialized America, to see if knowing the holy within and connecting to the holy in another could create real connections across the differences of their lives. In his essay, Circles, Ralph Waldo Emerson uses circles as a metaphor for understanding nature, human consciousness, and reality. Emerson wrote, "Our life is an apprenticeship to the truth that around every circle another can be drawn. The eye is the first circle. The horizon which it forms is the second. And then throughout nature, this primary figure is repeated without end." That first circle, the I, is the person, the self, the one who perceives. Emerson says that each person is the center of the set of their own circles. And it is from within these centers of ourselves that we have a series of circles of perception out onto the world. So if I am here in my center and you are there in your center, we may be able to perceive one another if our lives and our circles overlap, though we may or may not be able to see past one another's circles of perception to the center. We may simply see an outer circle of the other perceiving self. The edge of the horizon, that second circle, the edge of the horizon that the eye can see, is the extent of what a person can observe from the vantage point of themselves. That's the second circle, what I can possibly know. But reality doesn't stop at the edge of the horizon of what I can see. Rather, reality keeps going without end. That is the third and fourth and infinite number of circles to which Emerson refers. There's always another horizon beyond our initial understanding. There's always another circle beyond my set of circles. As we grow, we expand our circles and expand our consciousness, drawing larger and larger circles of perception and understanding. In every direction, we can perceive and grow further, identifying new horizons and keep developing our precious minds. What is the purpose of the human mind? What is the purpose of the human life? What is the purpose of church? In Unitarian Universalism, we have a variety of different beliefs about God, but we come together in church with a shared belief that human life is sacred, that each and every individual human being is inherently worthy and sacred. In a 2014 interview with Bill Moyer about her book of essays entitled "When I Was a Child, I Read Books," Pulitzer Prize-winning author and essayist Marilynne Robinson exclaimed over the magnificence of the human being. She said, "The human brain is the most complex object known to exist in the universe. Science says this. If the most exquisite expression of cosmic reality is the human brain, the human mind, then this is a thing to acknowledge, something to honor." She went on to say, if there's an economy in reality, then it's an enormous extravagance that we are what we are. There's something very excessive about human beings. We are brilliant beyond any imaginable use. We are excessive in the human mind. Robinson writes in her book that it is our ethical duty to honor the beauty and the brilliance of human beings by honoring one another truly and deeply, despite all of our differences, honoring one another by resisting the temptations of fear and greed, and instead truly respecting one another's sacred humanity and extravagant brilliance. Dr. Thurman believed that church was where we would practice this honoring, that church could be the nexus of healing the deep wound of race in the United States, because church is where we will tap into the sacred within ourselves and in a shared spiritual experience, learn to truly honor the sacred in one another. In church, we seek to build community across differences of age and race and income and history and body and experience. We are a universalist church. Dr. Thurman was a universalist theologian, and as Unitarian Universalists, our theology is that all human beings are sacred, worthy, and beloved. That is the grounding of our understanding of how we build real relationships across difference. But belief, that ground of understanding and practice, need to go hand in hand. We must not only know that human beings are inherently worthy, we must learn how to live like it. Church is as much for practice as it is for belief. We come back to it to live into our values, which frankly are easier to hold than they are to enact in our daily lives. Living our values is the human challenge that requires practice and return again. Church is for connecting with the divine and for practicing being human. It's for remembering our values, for reconnecting to the most high hopes and dreams we have for ourselves and for the world, and then for learning how to live them. These purposes of church are timeless. They were needed in 1944 and 1994, and especially today when the world is struggling, honestly, to honor human dignity and truth and sacred respect for life, a respect for life that is a higher priority than the economy, that is a higher priority than fear or despair. One of the ways that we practice living into our values in church is through equitable giving. That might sound crass to talk specifically about finances in terms of our values, but it's a real practical way that we live out our values. In church, we share the financial responsibility for our congregation among our members. We don't have required giving or dues. Rather, we leave it up to you, our members and friends and community, to determine what it is that you want to give, what it is that it makes sense in your financial life to give, and what part you are going to play in creating equitable conditions in the shared responsibility for the finances of this community. We don't know what it is equitable for you to give. Only you know your finances and your capacity. We can tell you how much church costs and ask you to consider what your role is in creating this shared space for experiencing the sacred and living into our values. But we can't tell you what equitable giving means for you. In this winter's Listen and Learn discussions about our congregation's finances, which were attended by about 200 First Church folks, we learned that a lot of our folks don't know what equitable giving means in a real practical, just concrete numbers sort of a way. So I'm going to talk openly today about real costs, not with the intention that anyone should feel guilty, but simply for transparency and clarity, so more of our members have a window into our congregation's finances and might have a deeper understanding of what an equitable share of the costs of church means in a concrete sense. So it currently costs about $1,625 per person per year to produce the worship and the programs of our congregation. If you want to think about that in a monthly sense, if the year is too big, that's $135 per month for an individual or $270 per month for a couple. Now, those aren't dues. We know that our members and friends have different capacities to give, and some of our members are generously contributing significantly more than that, which we are so grateful for because it enables us to provide the ministry to all of our members and friends regardless of financial circumstance. And that's so important. That's what equitable giving means. Please know that if you're giving less than what it costs to produce church, you are enthusiastically welcome in our congregation at whatever level you're able to give. But if you're able to contribute more, please consider doing so. Our annual congregational operating income is lower than our annual congregational operating expenses by about $150,000 a year. In addition, we're still not able to compensate our hardworking staff at the recommended rates for their positions. Almost 80% of our staff makes less than what the Unitarian Universalist Association recommends. While reserves and incredibly generous bequests have enabled us to continue to offer the current level of ministry that we provide, if we want to keep offering that same level of ministry in years to come, we need to close the gap between our operating income and our operating expenses over the next several years. So our pledge team, your fellow members, have set a goal for this year's pledge drive of all in. They are asking all of our members and friends, everyone who is experiencing this ministry and benefiting from it, to make a pledge. Just make a pledge this year at whatever level you can make it at, and say yes to the pledge team's invitation to join them for a pledge Zoom event. They have promised me it's going to be social, it's going to be fun, it's going to be connected to our values. You'll get to experience community and church. We are also asking all of our members and friends to consider increasing their giving to the church by 10% this year, or by $15 per person per month, whichever one of those is higher. If you're giving at a lower rate than what church costs, we also invite you to consider what equitable giving would mean for you in your particular specific life and financial circumstances. In the pledge drive materials you should have received in the mail this week, there's a chart. Of course, there's a chart. We're Unitarian Universalists. We have a chart. There's a chart in your pledge drive materials to help you understand the relationship between your financial situation and equitable giving. We ask that people who make more give more, and there are many of our members who do. For this, I just want to again say thank you. Your generosity, your sense of equity and integrity offers Unitarian Universalist ministry to people you may never know, people who are just as transformed by the grounding we share in love, universal human worthiness, and right relationship, regardless of varying financial situations. Members and friends of First Church, it has been a difficult year. And for some, it has been a difficult year financially. We need church, all of us, now more than ever. That's why we are asking those of you who can to give more, to make this the year you decide to give more to your community, so we can continue to offer this life-giving, transformative, values-based Unitarian Universalist ministry to everyone, regardless of financial circumstances. Church, helps us feel the sacred and live the lives we say we want to live. Live those lives with our actions and our resources and our behavior. It's not an easy thing to do. Dr. Thurman created the Church for the Fellowship of All Peoples as an experiment in the capacity of the experience of the sacred to overcome the differences between us. All Peoples is still going today, serving people of diverse races and faiths in San Francisco. Dr. Thurman also went on to mentor a generation of civil rights leaders, including the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., to whom he taught Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolence. Love ripples out from our work in all directions, from the core of who we are, our center, like a drop of water making Emerson's infinite circles. Our actions ripple out from our thoughts, which ripple out from our core values. So First Church members, I want to ask you, what is it that is at your core? What is your life for? What values do you want to be part of the center of you that ripples out into the world? If you want to share them with the community, just type your values in the chat right now. What are those core values that you hold, that you want church to call you back to? What matters to you most? When we listened to our members a few years ago about your core values, you said that you cared about wonder and authentic connection and love and justice. And those are the core values at the center of our congregation: wonder, authentic connection, love, and justice. What among those calls to you most? If there's something that jumps out, type it in the chat now, share it with the community. This is what matters to me most. This is what is at my core. Church brings us back to our core, brings us back to our values. And then it asks us to practice living them. That's not an easy thing to do. The world, with its grit and grime, its daily details, and its bigger systems of oppression, presses on us, distracts us, asks us to pay attention to or buy that shiny new thing instead of living the way we have professed that we want to live. The world works on us every day. So we need to practice returning to our core, to our values, to our highest resolve, at least every week, and probably more often. This practice of return is what you are giving to when you make your pledge this season. You are giving to your own commitment to your values and asking us to bring you home to them every week. And I see some folks in the chat here. We've got reverence for life, love and giving to others, kindness and compassion, love and justice and community, love when confronted with hatred. These are some of our core values as a community. When you give to the church, you are giving to those values and asking to be brought home to them again and again. But you're also giving equitably to ministry, to the community, and to the world. You are giving to bringing even more people home to love, to kindness and compassion, to reverence for life. You are giving to bringing Unitarian Universalist values, the inherent worthiness of human beings, the brilliance of the mind, the sacredness of this beautiful earth out into the world. You are giving so that more people than just you can return every week to the ground of love, can return to the moments of our highest resolve, and can remember that to which our lives are committed. You are giving to us practicing, living those values out in the world. Thank you for your generosity. Amen, and may it be so.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, growing stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free of hate and greed and tyranny. We are working to be free. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, our world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
Thank you all so much for your generosity. As I just said, pledges are at the core of our congregation's spiritual practice of generosity. We are also grateful for additional gifts to support our ministry and thank the folks out there who are appreciating this online ministry and supporting it by texting 73256 with the message "Give to you," or who are giving on our website. Your gifts help us to continue to provide this ministry. We also share the plate with an organization every month. Star King School for the Ministry is our February Share the Plate recipient. Operating as a school for the ministry since 1904, Star King's mission is to educate people for Unitarian Universalist ministry and for progressive religious leadership in society. By investing in UU theological education, we support students who minister within our tradition and beyond. We also help sustain our UU institutions that serve both as repositories for UU traditions and as incubators for our future as a faith movement. To give a donation directly to Star King School, please visit sksm.edu/about/giving. You can see all these options on your screen right now, and they will live on in the YouTube comments section of this video after worship is over. Thank you so much for giving, either right now or when you come back and give later. Your support keeps us and our community partners going. Thank you so much. Our closing words today come from the Reverend A. Powell Davies. Let me tell you why I come to church. I come to church, and I would whether I was the preacher or not, because I fall below my own standards, and I need to be constantly brought back to them. I'm afraid of becoming selfish and indulgent, and my church of the free spirit, brings me back to what I want to be. I could easily despair. Doubt or dismay could overwhelm me. My church renews my courage and my hope. It is not enough that I should think about the world and its problems at the level of a newspaper report or a magazine discussion. It could too soon become too low a level. I must have my conscience sharpened until it goads me to the most thorough and responsible thinking of which I am capable. I must feel again the love I owe to others. I must not only hear about it, but I must feel it. And in church, I do. I am brought toward my best in every way, toward my best. Amen, and may it be so.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going. We know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Whoa, yeah, yeah. Whoa, yeah, yeah.